Hi, I'm Leanne Jones. This is my older adult oral presentation. For my individual, I chose my husband, Michael Jones. He is a 67-year-old coal miner. He works every day. He loves his job. And the stage I chose was generativity versus stagnation. And according to an old theories of learning text I had, um, Erikson considered the individuals in this stage to be from the ages of 35 to 55. And during this stage of development, adults begin to get their careers, they start families, they get involved with their communities, they look beyond themselves and, look to the future. And if during this stage the individual does not have a job, is not invested in their community, and has no interest in those, they become self centered and self absorbed, according to our text. Um, and if this is the case, then they become bored, or as Erikson calls, stagnant. That would be the stagnation part of this stage. And according to Erikson, one of the things that comes out of each stage of development is the resolution of the crisis, and a strength comes out of that. And according to my old text, the basic strength that came out of the stage of generativity versus stagnation is care. So I interpret that as caring, as in you care for your family, you care about your community, you get care for all mankind. Now, a little bit about my husband. He grew up in a small town, um, and went to a small town high school. So during this stage of this stage, he got married, and a week, during that first week of marriage, he decided that he shouldn't have got married. But that wasn't me. Um, he decided to join the army and was then deployed to the war in Vietnam and went overseas to Vietnam. And he does not talk about that time. He does a little bit, but that's something that he buries down deep inside, which would be repression in Freud's um, theory. Um, but after a few years in the military, he left the army. He came back to West Virginia and went to college on the GI Bill. And he did some student teaching for a while. He had some real issues because he had long hair and he was a hippie. And he's a very smart hippie. Um, but when he started teaching, he did cut his hair. He could not get a job teaching full time. He did a lot of substitute teaching. And in 1976, I believe, he got a job in the coal mines, which around this area of West Virginia, that's a really big thing. And he's worked in the coal mines for 40 years now. Now, over that time, the 40 years, he's had several layoffs, which impacted his family, me, in these later years. But back then, he took off and went to Baltimore, lived with his mother for a while, and worked there so that he could take care of his first wife and daughter. So he probably had a 2, 3 year period um, that he was laid off, and there were several other times in there that were shorter periods of time. Now, over the years, he struggled with substance abuse. Um, and mainly it came out of what he said was self-medicating because he didn't want to be married, but he felt he had to um, stay with his family to take care of them. And he he would drink and smoke marijuana and listen to music. So I'm looking here to make sure I'm not got the and then years later he met his second wife, that's me, and has been living happily ever after for 17 years. So the crisis during that time was the marriage and not wanting to be in the marriage and self-medicating and being he was sort of self-absorbed and didn't think beyond himself because he was unhappy. He stayed in the marriage because he had a daughter and had to take care of his family. He told me that he felt obligated. And I asked him what that meant to be obligated, and he said, well, I married her and we had a child and I had to take care of them because he felt that she couldn't take care of herself, his wife. And I asked him why he thought that, and he said, well, because she couldn't take care of herself. But, I asked him if he thought I couldn't take care of myself. And he said, well, yeah, you can take care of yourself. So I said, okay. But anyway, he said that drinking and the marijuana helped him escape and sort of avoid the situation. So, under Freud's psychoanalytic theory, he was using denial to avoid the unhappy marriage. He doesn't believe in psychology, which I asked him to explain that. And what he doesn't believe in is the therapy part, the talking part. He doesn't feel that you can walk in an office and tell a therapist your problems and come up with a solution, which this interview was a little bit different because it's my husband, so I sort of threw in a few questions just to clarify some things. And I said, so what do I do? He said, well, that's different, that's you. I said, okay. So he's coming around, but he used the denial to just avoid the unhappy marriage. Now, again, under Skinner's classical conditioning, he made the link and conditioned himself that when he wanted to avoid and was unhappy, he drank, he forgot, and he was happy. So, I asked him if he realized that, and he says, yeah, now he does realize how that links up and how he conditioned himself to drink to avoid the unpleasantness. Um, and part of that with the crisis, his mother was from Paris, France, and met his father during World War II in Paris. They got married and came here. So growing up, Michael's mom spoke English a little bit broken, and it's funny. There's certain words that he mispronounces simply because he grew up hearing his mother say it in the French accent, and one of those is death, Death. He says deaf as Deaf. I don't correct him much, but that's just one of the little quirky things that comes from growing up with a um, mom who speaks French with a French accent. Um, his parents fought. They both drank and fought. He said that there were several times he came home from school and they'd thrown dishes and all the dishes were broken. Um, I guess he witnessed some. He didn't go into it that much. That it's just another thing that he doesn't want to think of these unpleasant things because they hurt him deeply. Um, but so he learned some of those things from his parents. He learned that drinking makes you forget. But one of the things that came from that is he learned that he didn't want to be violent or fighting, so he doesn't fight. Um, he withdrew from his friends and listened to music to avoid the unhappy marriage. Um, and one thing he did, he blamed his first wife for the bad marriage and said that she did these things and he was doing the same thing. So that's a thing under Freud. Michael didn't go to church. The family didn't go to church, so he's agnostic. Um, he was treated unfairly and resented in some ways because he served in the military. He had long hair and he was viewed as a hippie. Um, go next. I sorry. So one of the things that through this resolution, he overcame his substance abuse um, through a rehab program at work. They didn't hold it against him and sent him paid for his rehab. So he went through rehab. I guess he learned some things that might have been psychologically based in rehab and came home, got out of the unhappy marriage and met me later. Um, the other theory that I'd like to apply is Bronfenbrenner's ecological systems theory. In looking at Michael grew up in a small town. In his microsystem were his parents and his two brothers. They were all real close in age. Um, so that his microsystem was, very um, not violent, but disorganized. Now, his mesosystem, yes, he was involved with school early in life, but later in life, before he met me, he wasn't involved with any organizations and just sort of stayed away from his friends. He was just sort of in his own little miserable self because he was unhappy. Um, in his ecosystem, he was involved with work. He loves his job, but he has never been involved with the community. For the macro system, he has strong beliefs about anything, but they're not faith-based. He feels that the political system has really, he doesn't like it because he feels that he was wronged because he was in the Vietnam War and treated unfairly for that. And also the political effects on the coal industry that's hurt his job um, and caused layoffs and all that. Um, for limitations, okay, I already said he doesn't believe in psychology, but he did agree that the classical conditioning sounded very applicable to his use of alcohol. And the Freud theory, any of Freud's theory, in the text it said that it was his work was based on the work with wealthy Caucasian women, which that's kind of hard to apply to a kind of hippie guy from West Virginia that's not wealthy. Um, and then the classical conditioning has the limitations because it doesn't address the cognitive processes that motivate the behaviors. Um, yeah, that's it, and I've gone over a little bit. Thanks.